Do do do, theme song. Do do do, I'm broke so this is my theme song. Do do do, just imagine this is an awesome theme song. Do do, theme song. Left of the box. Hello, welcome to Left of the Box. Bonjour, bienvenue. I'm Sandy. Well, I've been busy this weekend focusing on a new book, editing it. I haven't been on social media much. Let's see what's been happening. Huh. Um, o- okay. Oh, yeah. Hmm. It's been a weekend, huh? Boy. Yeah, everyone let me know the standard. Is my audio okay? Is my visual okay? Um, I'm going to try something a little new and not plug in my headphones because last time I accidentally didn't have my headphones plugged in when I was showing a video and people said they didn't hear an echo. So if you don't hear an echo, that's great because it's a real hassle putting the earphones in. Anyway, let's check the sandbox. We have a lot of people in here already. We have the Anti-Corporatist Hunger Games 1989. Schmegly. I was almost going to say the other thing. Looney Tunes 9000. Mudbuds. Mystery Moon. Welcome. Gunstoke the Cybertonian. Welcome. Nina Canadian. Yeah, I was hoping because I saw Dan from the internet was on earlier. Please go check out his show, Dan, the Power Report. He did some great coverage on this the past couple nights. So please go check that out. And I was thinking, you know what? I'll wait till he's over because I know we share a lot of audience. And now the Vanguard's on. It's like there's no real scheduling. Like they need to let us smaller channels just kind of, have some room, have some space. But I can do something they're not going to do, and that is make this about Canada. If you want to hear the American perspective, you have a bazillion channels to listen to. But to hear somebody make it about Canada, that's me. That's me. I'm going to make it about Canada. Oh, let's see. Okay, I'm getting some all clears with audio, and I'm sure the visual's okay. Mhm. Yeah, so just waiting for some people to get into the sandbox and get a watch in. I'll chit chat with you guys. Oh, MIDI doctors, hello. Uh, is there a football game going on, or hockey, or basketball? Something that requires a goal? I don't know. Baseball? I'm not a sports person. Yeah, so I have been busy the past little while, not on here all that much. Part of it is just anxiety, like panic attacks trying to start a stream. Mental health issues, they ebb and flow every now and then. But also I've been focused on my new book. I'm in the editing process, and that's all I want to do. It's an escape. It gets me away from this world, out of my head, not worrying about things. It decompresses me. And also, there's a timeline. Because for those of you who don't know, I'm doing this online thing where it happens yearly, and it's an organization, and they have like 50 book covers that are completely made up with completely made up titles and author names, and you rank them, you get one doled out to you, and you have to make a story based on that cover. And I decided to enter this year with one of my friends. It's a friendly competition of sorts. So there is a timeline as to when they need the manuscript, which is the end of this month. So I want to make sure that it's as polished as possible before we go into the editing process. Just make sure that all the little things in there that I want, and I've been using an online a plugin on my Google Chrome to help me with it, something that's a little bit better than what Word would offer you when it comes to grammar and spelling and stuff. And really, that's all I want to do. It is an escape. I just love being there and not here and dealing with all this world at times. Cause yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So this weekend there was a assassination attempt on Donald Trump yesterday, and it's been all over the news. You see, when I was planning on doing this live stream Friday, I was just going to vent about Biden, you know, how he's not stepping down yet. But then all this happened with Trump, and it's like, oh my gosh, oh my god, oh my god. I was on the Letter Hack briefly last night. Everyone go check out his channel as well. And we were talking a bit about this, and this was before we knew a lot of the stuff. So when I first kind of caught the clips, I didn't really know much about it. I'm not the type of person to assume it's a false flag or assume anything about it. It's just like, okay, so we got some clips, we don't really know anything, which is why I don't generally like covering these things live, because I want to wait till some information is out so that we know some things. And turns out it wasn't a false flag, because I couldn't help but think the way that they reacted and everything, it had a very WWE feel vibe to it, you know? Because Donald Trump was well connected with the WWE at one point, and something that they would actually do in the WWE to make things more dramatic is, let's say they got hit over the head with a folding chair or something like that. They had a razor kind of palmed, and they would give themselves a little nick, so then you'd see the blood, even though the chair itself didn't cause that blood. And the way that he kind of went down and held his ear, it almost looked like that. But there was an actual shooter, and as soon as I knew there was an actual shooter, okay, it's not a false flag, because to hit him that close intentionally is impossible. It's impossible. I don't care what kind of sharpshooter you are, to hit somebody's ear at a distance intentionally instead of in their head. Yeah, so actual shooter, it's not a false flag, and tragically somebody did die, somebody in the audience, and somebody else was severely wounded from what I hear. Or actually, scratch that. I don't know who the person was who got shot, if they were in the audience or if they were maybe one of Trump's security's guards. So if you know in the Sandbox, let me know. So, but the thing is that Donald Trump still has that WWE vibe going. And I think this is why a lot of people are assuming it's a false flag or assuming it's not real, because of how Trump reacted to it. Suddenly, like fist pumping, all these amazing pictures and things of that sort. Donald Trump is horrible in a lot of ways, and he's not the brightest person in a lot of ways. But when it comes to self-promotion and media, he's a freaking genius. That's basically how he became president, was through that kind of self-promotion and knowing what works in media. His reaction to that, because if you've watched the video, and I'm sure most of you have, but if you actually listen to it, they quickly say the shooter's down. So he knows as long as there's just one shooter, he's safe. And then he does the fist pumping and stuff like that because he knows more or less he's safe. But the way he reacted to it is how somebody in the WWE would just kind of take that opportunity and react to it all like that. It is a flare of the dramatic. And it was a good call on his part. You know, it got him the pictures that he wants, the talk of the town, showing strength, getting the audience to chant, all that sort of stuff. But that was definitely a WWE tactic going on that he was pulling off there. So we're going to be facing an uphill battle now with a lot of other people claiming it's false flag, claiming conspiracies. But really, is it that difficult to believe in this day and age that somebody would attempt to take out any political person? Like, the atmosphere is just so hostile right now. To it doesn't matter where you land on the spectrum of politics, it's a hostile environment to be in. So is it really that surprising that he was a target? To me, it's actually more surprising it wasn't somebody on the left who was a target, because we're now going to be faced with a lot of people saying, even though the person who was the shooter was determined to be a Republican, a white man at the age of 20, the right will still kind of try to make it about the left being horrible, the media being horrible, and all this sort of stuff, while completely not mentioning anything about how horrible they've been. Like, Trump literally said he could shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Ave. Way back when, he had a full page ad put into a newspaper saying he wanted 5 innocent black men executed. The right, by far, is the more extremist, violent. Studies back that up. Looking at motivations behind these types of attacks back it up. Looking at, rise in hate attacks and all that sort of stuff. It is predominantly people on the right. And if you watch them in the media, their political figures, their influencers, all that sort of stuff, you're constantly seeing stochastic terror, which, the right is now accusing the media of doing towards Donald Trump, which is just absurd. Um, I've seen religious leaders flat out call for the execution of queer folks with no pushback. There's tons of media influencers, right-wing influencers, that are constantly hinting at how dangerous it is, hinting at, queer folks in particular being a threat. They're going to harm your children, all that sort of stuff. Even recently here in Canada, there was that truck going around Toronto, an LED truck with blaring things saying, this is Canada, showing images of Muslim prayer, and basically saying, they're coming for you. You're under siege. What are you going to do? Basically, that's stochastic terrorism right there. And we're constantly seeing it. And it's just so frustrating, because this will almost give a license to some of them to act out. It emboldens them when it's one of theirs who is the target. And they will use this moment, they will prop it up, they'll keep on talking about it, they'll keep on referring to it, despite all of the other ones coming from right wing, even though the shooter was Republican. But that's not how they're going to frame it. And I'm going to show you a bit already as to what they're doing to frame this. It's pretty sad. But all this does is embolden his base, gets people more revved up, gets them more trigger happy when it comes to defending themselves or other people. And all this talk of political violence because he got sniped in the ear and you saw his bloody ear. Well, to be fair, listening to Trump regularly makes my ears bleed. But they never mention the violence and the brutality that the police inflict on innocent people, on peaceful protesters. The bombing campaigns that are happening in Gaza right now, which is all political. That's not mentioned. But because he was targeted, suddenly, political violence, huh? That's a thing, isn't it? Huh? Yeah. And here in Canada, we have a long history of political violence, especially towards Indigenous peoples. They've had blockades and stuff before with snipers homed in on them. Uh, Even, recently at some of the university encampments, you had police spying on them, singling them out. And then here's Donald Trump being a target, and all it's going to do is justify their actions to themselves. And this makes it even more dangerous and it makes him look good. I did see one tweet out there that was kind of, well, there's a whole bunch of tweets out there. I've been on Twitter a lot watching all this kind of come out. Things like, oh no, PDF files, I'm using the jargon for YouTube here, are horrible and they should be shot. And then it's like, oh no, you shot our PDF file. How dare you? I don't support political violence. Do I want Trump out of the race? Of course I do. But I don't want people to think it's okay, this is how you do it. Because again, it's not the right, it's not the Republicans, it's not the conservatives that are going to suffer the most if people start getting permissive with this. It's going to be people on the left. Also, I don't like people being shot and assassinated. That's bad. I know, hot take there. It is, it's an attack on him, but we're going to feel the consequences on the left, which is just, and it didn't matter who did it really. It would have been a lot worse had it been some sort of Antifa, radical leftist, queer person who did it. Then the lashing out would be a lot worse. But they're still going to use it and use it as justification, just like they do with all the other incidences of the right wing being targeted. It's like, oh, they point to that one time, without again mentioning all the other times the right has been targeting people on the left. And just some of the grossest hypocrisy is out there right now with a lot of these Republicans saying, oh, this violence is uncalled for, political violence is always wrong, and blah, 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 blah. And there's tons of threads. And you're a bright audience, people in the Sandbox, I'm sure you know the amount of times the right has called for violence. Like, even just look at January 6th, the riot, people died there. Trump was the one who kind of stoked that fire. But now he's the victim. Oh no. So, and this will have fallout here in Canada, of course, because all it will do is embolden our conservative leaders, embolden the hatred that's happening up here, because there is a lot of hatred happening up here, always has been. And I have some interesting comments from some of the leaders, how they responded, and then I'm going to talk a lot about Pierre Poilievre and how he's starting to really take on this United States right-wing fanaticism as a cloak. So before we get into some of that stuff, let's look at the Sandbox and see there's lots of people chit-chatting in there. Oh, where's my mouse? There's my mouse. There we go. Shamigli, Sandy, no way Trump would ever put himself personally at risk like this. Yeah, that's the other thing. He would never allow a false flag that he would actually be a danger. Like if it was that WWE thing where he clips his own ear and there was a shooter, then the shooter would have had blanks. But that wasn't the case. And yeah, as soon as an actual shooter was confirmed, okay, this is not a false flag. It really happened. And it shouldn't be that hard to believe that this could happen in today's environment with everything that's going on. MIDI doctors, Trump adrenaline would be going haywire. Yeah, after somebody tries to kill you, you would be, your adrenaline would be spiking pretty big there. Yeah. Uh, Sorry, I don't like just kind of leaning over here and looking at the sandbox, but I'm trying to see if there's anything I can respond to, some inner talk. Okay. So I don't think I need to, well, again, just an example of the hypocrisy and stuff. When there was an attempt on Nancy Pelosi, she wasn't home, but her husband was, and he was brutally attacked. There was this. So again, I'm going to play the audio. Let me know in the sandbox if you're hearing an echo.
Nancy Pelosi, who will stand up to crazy Nancy Pelosi, who ruined San Francisco. How's her husband doing, by the way? Anybody know? And she's against building a wall at our border, even though she has a wall around her house, which obviously didn't do a very good job. Will stand up to...
Yeah. So there he was mocking the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. His son, Trump's son, released a Halloween costume pic as a joke with underwear and a hammer because he was attacked with a hammer. It is... And there's threads on Twitter of just showing the examples, but we've all known it. We've all seen it from his rhetoric over the years, the right's rhetoric over the years. That it's, generally speaking, they're the ones that are calling for the violence. Okay, I got a clear audio from Gunstroke the Cybertonian. Good, because I really don't like putting in the headphones. So here's again another example of just how comfortable the right is with violence. This was from a long time ago, this video, but it's getting reposted now, where it's like, oh yeah, let's make Joe Biden a dummy here that people can just go up and kick at the Republican convention. Just very casual, casual acceptance of violence as humor and stuff. And, you switch that around. Well, we have seen the opposite of this. Like, this is supposed to be funny, seeing people kick this dummy of Joe Biden. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. Yet when that one comedian held up the severed head of Donald Trump as a joke, that wasn't funny. But this is hilarious. Yeah, double standard going on there, huh? And it's not fair. Here, let me go back here. No, it's not fair. It's not fair that people on the left can't get away with things that people on the right can get away with. But it's not that we should be allowed to do it. It's that they shouldn't be doing it. We're always going to get attacked more for having, slip up in our behaviors, having mistakes. Which means we do have to be more cautious with what we say. Because a lot of people have publicly posted over the past 24 hours things that have the potential to get them in a lot of trouble later on. Especially if Trump gets into power, because, there is a real possibility of that. There is. Especially if Joe Biden stays in the race. Okay, now I'll just get into my rant about Joe Biden while I'm on the topic of him before we get back to this Trump stuff. Hey, Joe. Hey, Joe. It's time to go. I don't even know how this is a conversation at this point. Okay, it has nothing to do with his age. I'm not ageist here, but we've all seen him completely fall apart. And I keep on hoping that he's going to drop out, that somebody's eventually going to pressure him to drop out, because this whole attitude of like, oh, well, we'll give it 2 more tries to see if he's coherent enough. And it's like, you don't get to do that. You're gambling with the lives of hundreds of millions here. Like, in no other profession can you do what Joe Biden does when he was questioned about, like, so what happens if you lose the election? And instead of making it about the people, he made it about himself and just said, well, I tried my best and that's all that matters. No, it doesn't. Like, if you miss a sales target and you tell your boss, you know what? I tried my best and that's all that matters. You're getting fired. Back when I was working at Rebel HQ, I tried my best to make videos, but they weren't picking up steam in the algorithms. I didn't keep my job there because results matter. Trying your best when it comes to this world doesn't matter. Results do. And so if he fails at this, the consequences will be felt by hundreds of millions of people. But I see him and people are just constantly still just putting him up on this little pedestal or cutting him all the slack. Like, you know what? He did a press conference at 8 p.m. and he seemed really awake for it. That's not something you should be bragging about. That isn't something that should be lauded. Like, seriously, you need somebody in the, like, yes, America is probably the most powerful nation on the planet. I'll say that as a Canadian. I will say that. Okay, you need somebody who could potentially stay awake for 24 hours to deal with a crisis. Somebody who can be called upon every time of night or day or whatever, and they have to be alert and active, not fall into these windows where they aren't as fallen into the dementia as before. Okay, Joe has to step down, and everyone around him who keeps on enabling him, they're all responsible for this outcome. No reasonable person would look at that and say, you know what, he's still capable. He's capable. It's like, okay, fine. Let's just take away his presidency right now and see who would hire him for anything. For anything. I wouldn't even feel safe hiring him as an Uber driver. Okay, he would not be able to get any other job right now, but somehow the president of the United States is still something he's applying for. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? How is this a conversation? Okay, Joe has to go. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He has to go. And everyone who keeps on saying, you know what, it's not so bad, and you hear him say, well, I'm not as sharp as I used to be. Great, then you shouldn't be there because you weren't sharp that sharp in the first place. Leave while you still have some sort of legacy intact. If you take out the horrific, genocide enabling he's doing, when it comes to domestic stuff in the United States, he was pretty good. But then he just totally is like, oh, okay, political violence, really bad, huh? So here, Israel, here's some 500-pound bombs to drop on starving refugees within Gaza. Just drop these bombs on them. It's not political violence to do that. But it is just, looking at this, it seems so unreal. Like, no movie script could top this. Nothing. It's like an alternate dimension. Like, we're living in the mirror dimension as we speak. We were somehow transported here without our knowledge. And we're just kind of watching it unfold because all sense of reason, all logic just seems to have escaped people. Joe Biden should not be in the race right now. Neither should Trump. Neither of them are qualified to run the most powerful nation in the world. And I say that as a Canadian, because what happens in the United States have global impacts, especially to Canada, with us being the neighbor. It is just so beyond the pale that there's so many people around Joe Biden still thinking that he can pull this off because Trump just got, the best campaign photos, the best campaign ads, people suddenly supporting this victim of political violence. Biden's going to lose if you keep him in. That's he's going to lose. You don't need to be a political savant to know that's the case. He needs to step down for the sake of the hundreds of millions of people in the United States and the hundreds of millions of people around the world that United States policies will affect, and the influence that, the political state of the United States has on our Canadian politicians. Because Pierre Poilievre, we're going to get into him in just a little bit, he is definitely, just saying, like, he's taking notes right now. He's taking the notes. He's looking at what's happening at the United States, and he's like, oh, so I gotta do this, and then, oh, evangelicalism, okay, yep, check that, and I'll do that, and yeah, we'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, so let's get back to some of how they're spinning it. How they are spinning it. Is anybody really going to be surprised by how they're spinning it? How they're spinning it? Spinning it? So from Ari Drennan, the shooter was Republican, so they're going to switch to the DEI angle. Just watch. And here's Matt Walsh. There should not be any woman in the Secret Service. These are supposed to be the very best, and none of the very best at this job are women. That's some misogynistic bullshit right there. That's not true. Women are completely capable of holding down these jobs just as much as men. This isn't a gender thing. They get the same training. They have the same, responsibilities and duties, and they're just as capable as fulfilling those duties as men. And it just even having to say it like that, they're just as capable, feels wrong to do that. Because we shouldn't be having this conversation in this day and age. Because then all this does is kind of put other people on the defensive, saying, well, women can do this and this and this, and you ever see, the maternal nature of a woman when they're protecting their child and blah 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 and all that. No, this shouldn't be a talking point. Yet it's people like Matt Walsh, who has also stochastically terrorized queer folks, that get propped up in the media. Like, of course, women can do this job. That's neither here nor there. But this is the angle that they're going to go, because there happen to be some women on the Secret Service. Even in those fist pumping pictures you have of Donald Trump, you see a woman shielding Trump with her body. Okay? And this isn't the fault of a gender within the Secret Service. This was a failure of the Secret Service. Many of you might have seen the one clip going around of the BBC interviewing somebody who was at the scene. And these people who were at the scene were trying to signal to the Secret Service that, hey, there's a shooter over there. And they did nothing for minutes and minutes and minutes. They did nothing. This wasn't a failure of women in the Secret Service. This was a failure of the Secret Service. But it's going to spread. So was it the best agents or was it DEI that placed those agents there? I haven't actually watched this clip yet, so let's watch it together, shall we?
What does DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, have to do? Was it the best agents or was it DEI that placed those agents there? I hate to say it, I saw some agents that looked like they didn't have a clue. What does
Yep, they're still making it about the culture war. This is the world we live in. Because if there was no women on that Secret Service in that video, they would have found another way to make it about, a vulnerable group of people. And I don't know if all the information about the shooter is out yet, but I guarantee you, if he once did anything that was considered left-leaning, they're going to latch on to that really bad. And it's disgusting that this is still a conversation in this day and age, that they're forcing this conversation and that people are legitimizing it by having them on the news, by saying they're experts in a field, by, oh, look at these people, this group of people with no authority to speak on this subject, is speaking on this subject. And they say it was because there were women on his team that there was a shooter on the roof. The women standing around Trump acted just the way the men did. Without the funky sunglasses, I might add. Yeah, just looking over at the Sandbox. But you know what? Diversity in any organization helps it because it brings in more perspectives, brings in more experiences. Because if you can see why somebody would be a potential target from different points of view, it's beneficial to have them in your organization. If you're in the Secret Service or something of that sort, you could be like, well, actually, this could be an issue here, or this might pose a problem, or this type of person might go after him because. Let's see. Sorry. And so again, here we have the double standards with some political violence. I am shocked by the shooting at the 45th President of the U.S., Donald Trump. I pray for his speedy recovery. Violence can never be part of politics. Yeah, we interrupt the genocide to condemn political violence. And somebody else just kind of pointing out, yeah, so they're justifying the massacre that they're committing right now, followed by, oh no, Donald Trump got nicked in the ear. Again, somebody did tragically die, but here the same person is also saying the operation to eliminate Hamas military leader in Gaza and these people commander is more than justified. So they're dropping these massive bombs, killing over 100 people in any given strike to potentially get to Hamas, supposed Hamas leaders. But political violence is bad. Because what's happening over in Gaza, that's not political violence. No, no, no. But Donald Trump getting shot at a rally, that is just disgusting. Disgusting that we have so many leaders, and we're going to get to some of the comments, who will call this out, rightfully so, but again, are silent with the atrocities happening in Gaza, are silent with what's happening to the indigenous peoples here, are silent with what happened to peaceful protesters on any given protest on the university campuses, the violence that was inflicted towards them. You don't hear our politicians say boo about that. In fact, they'll accuse those peaceful protesters of being the violent ones. I covered it in detail a long time ago where they were stopped outside of Mount Sinai Hospital, and all these political leaders, how dare they do this? Target this hospital like that. When they weren't targeting the hospital, they were literally walking by it. Ooh, but somebody was up on the rafters of this hospital. Yeah, somebody dressed up as Spider-Man who was climbing up everything on the path. But our prime minister and other leaders were painting them as these vicious protesters targeting this Jewish hospital when they were really just protesting a genocide that is still ongoing, with horrific numbers coming out from studies, which I actually suspected they were probably that high. Close to 200,000 people, they're saying. It's going to be a lot higher by the time this is done, but that isn't the political violence we should be talking about. It's this one little rally. But let's get into what the Canadian leaders were saying about this, shall we, eh? Justin Trudeau, standard. I'm sickened by the shooting at former President Trump. It cannot be overstated. Political violence is never acceptable. My thoughts are with former President Trump, those at the event, and all Americans. And then somebody posting a video. Oh, right. Political violence from, the good guys here in Canada. And Justin Trudeau, who, was in charge when those snipers were training their rifles on land defenders defending their own land from an oil corporation going through and putting in a pipeline. That's not political violence. Of course not. And of course, Canada also sending weapons to Israel. I don't know what else people were saying on it. Yeah, political violence, including when you trample Canadian rights and freedoms, Canadians themselves, when you rose up against your tyranny. But let's see what Jagmeet Singh had to say. He's the leader of the federal NDP. There is no room for violence at any political event. We must all stand united against political violence wherever it happens. Wherever, you say? Wherever? So like in our borders and, maybe over in the borders of Gaza? When those political violences? Because Jagmeet Singh has said some things about what's happening over there, but not much. Not by a long shot. My thoughts are with the former President Trump and his family, as well as with the other victims of this shooting, and my gratitude to law enforcement, which included women, members, and first responders who prevented further deaths. Yeah, there were that would include the women. The women were also involved with preventing those deaths. It's so ridiculous, this world that we're living in. And all of this suddenly, like, people are suddenly like, oh, Donald Trump, we actually care. I am glad he wasn't assassinated. My thoughts are with the person who was. Donald Trump is definitely a threat to the safety and well-being of hundreds of millions of people. It's okay to just say you are against political violence, and you don't have to say your thoughts are with President Trump. Good thing he didn't get shot, but you know what? Political violence, bad. Wherever it happens. So, Jagmeet, I'm expecting a statement about the 500-pound bombs being dropped on Gaza. Any moment now. Any moment. Expecting a statement on that. Or how about when we get to the police and how they responded to the encampment at the university in Winnipeg? Or just, when all the police in Alberta, Edmonton, and Calgary, when they were assaulting peaceful protesters. I don't recall if you had a comment about that unacceptable political violence. Yves Blanchette, he's the leader of the Bloc Québécois, also had a statement. Le Bloc Québécois dénonce son équivalent, l'entente contre l'ancien président Trump. Le démocrate est le plus puissant instrument au service du bien commun. La haine et la violence font pour mais ne convainc personne. Nous condamnons aux poches de la victime innocente et aux suicides hypolinis ne sommes pas le vent. Got it, great, good. Okay, let's move on. Doug Ford, yeah. Political violence has no place in democracy. I'm thankful for that former President Trump is safe, and my thoughts are with our friends south of the border who have been shaken by this terrible incident. Now, you notice I haven't mentioned anything about Pierre Poilievre yet. He also, he had a tweet about this as well. That's still up. All these are pretty standard milquetoast comments that you would expect from political leaders. And then there's Pierre Poilievre. I condemn in the strongest of terms the attempted murder of former President Trump today. I am relieved he is safe. My prayers are with other innocent people harmed or killed by this heinous act. I am also happy that the suspected shooter is dead. Democracy must prevail. Let's see. That's yep, that is his account. It's not a parody. That's his account. Not a parody. I am also happy that the suspected shooter is dead. Suspected. He's glad that somebody suspected of the shooting is dead. Yet the left is the ones calling for violence? What the fuck? He stands a good chance of being the next prime minister of this country. But he's glad a suspected shooter is dead. Yes, it turns out the person who was the shooter is dead. But just to throw that in, the suspected shooter, the person we suspect of shooting, it's a good thing he's dead. And he's happy about it. He's happy. This just brightened his day. He's so happy that this person is dead, as opposed to, being captured and interrogated, finding out if there's any other people involved with this, maybe getting behind the reasoning of it and having him, have his day in court type thing and go through all of that. No, because that's not democracy. Democracy is shooting the suspect dead. Yeah. Democracy must prevail. And part of that democracy is supposed to be trials. Not executions in the middle of the street. Like, no doubt about it. You fire on a president or a former president. It's a death wish. The chances of you surviving that is very, very slim. But that shouldn't be the goal, you know, because what if, because this all happened still when news was coming out, what if it turned out that the suspected shooter in this case wasn't the actual shooter? Would Pierre still be happy that this person is dead? I just, to have somebody that's the leader of a party post this, it's disturbing. And it's disturbing on how much he's echoing a lot of the rhetoric that's coming from, the United States. Just kind of curious what people are saying. Yeah, a lot of people not happy with that particular comment. But yeah, let's get a little bit more into Pierre Poilievre and how he is kind of just taking notes and copying what he's seeing down south. But before we do that, let's check the sandbox. Hello, my dogs are goth. Let's see. Have my homemade iced coffee here. Or it's just coffee I threw in the fridge and sweetened with hot chocolate instead of sugar. And added more milk than normal. That's my secret recipe. Let's see. Rachel Atwood, how much military aid is Canada sending to Israel? A lot. A lot. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but we send a lot of money and weapons and all that sort of stuff. Shemagli, complimenting me on my French. Hunger Games 1989, sorry, but I don't speak French or whatever that language was. It's French. It's Canadian French. It's a dialect that you find, only in this part of the country. Like this exact part of the country. It's a specific dialect of French there. Let's see. People not too happy with Pierre Poilievre. Jeannie Bottle, what do you think of guns now, Mr. Trump, and AR rifles? This isn't going to have any impact on how they think of guns. None. Absolutely none. None. So the man who shot them was 20. Not old enough, apparently, to buy alcohol down there. Weird. Not old enough to rent a car, but old enough to buy a gun. It's not going to do anything. Like, I don't even think they're not going to make this about guns at all. The left, the right, nobody's going to make this about guns because it's going to be the right now making it about DEI and the left trying to justify themselves. Like that's all it is. It's always the right leading the narrative on these sorts of things, which is so frustrating. Oh, thank you so much, the straight shooter, for the $4.99 super chat. Just trying to help a sister out. Well, thank you for helping this sibling out. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Let's get into a little bit more of Pierre Poilievre. Let's do that. And Let's see. I do this. I know I do a weird job of copying my stuff, but oh well.
The Honorable Pierre Poilievre. Praise the Lord. Will you stand? Hallelujah.
Pierre Poilievre was in church last Sunday, not just one, but three evangelical churches, where he was greeted as a political savior.
And I'm believing God that the next Prime Minister will be the one to turn things around.
Amen.
Tax exempt status should be gone now. Remove it right now. Just get rid of it. Pierre wasn't there to just say hi to people. This was a political campaign stop.
Poilievre spread the conservative gospel.
The good news is, Canada, our home, was not like this before Justin Trudeau, and it won't be like it after he's gone.
The media is not invited to these events, but a speech posted online by one of the churches shows Poilievre saying the same kinds of things he says at any political rally or in Parliament.
We need to become the freest country on earth. Free, for you are free to speak your mind, to raise your children with your own values on matters of gender and sexuality.
But visiting evangelical churches is a groundbreaker for a Canadian political leader.
The trick is to
Maybe because you're not supposed to be doing that because churches have tax exempt status, and to use it as a campaign stop, it's you shouldn't be doing that. Maybe that's why it's so groundbreaking that it hasn't happened yet.
do that without being tarred with the brush that you are an extremist, that you're a, American style Christian right ideologue, which I think is toxic in Canadian politics.
Even Stephen Harper, who was himself a member of an evangelical church, thought close associations with evangelicals might be a political liability.
I would say that there's some truth to that.
Andrew Enns was Harper's pollster and says Poilievre's breaking of this political taboo is significant.
It tells us that he's fairly comfortable and he's feeling fairly confident right now that he's got a message that Canadians, doesn't matter where they are, they're reacting well to.
Evangelicals at the elite level are a really important part of the conservative infrastructure. So if you look at what he had was his own mentors, people like Stockwell Day Sr., Preston Manning, so he is not himself an evangelical, but he's surrounded by people who are.
And these visits are important to religious groups like Cardis, a nonpartisan Christian think tank.
One thing that Christians, and particularly evangelicals, but Christians in general in Canada, I think are wanting right now is a little show of support for a community that has seen, I think, significant restrictions of their freedoms.
What restrictions of their freedoms are you talking about there? It's interesting that he says that, but then we don't get the follow-up of what restrictions are evangelical Christians up here facing? Because, allowing queer folks to marry, to live their lives as who they are and all that sort of stuff, that's not removing a freedom from evangelicals. They don't have to participate in queer stuff if they don't want to. So how exactly are their rights being infringed on versus queer folks and people who can get pregnant that risk not having clinics that they can go to in Canada? The rights of people with disabilities, living with disabilities, and our access to the healthcare we need to survive. What about our rights? What about the rights of the peaceful protesters that get trampled on? Those rights that are being taken away regularly. What rights have the evangelical Christians in this country lost? And the thing is that for the longest time, religion, for the most part, stayed out of Canadian politics. Now, Not that I was too seriously invested in the political landscape here all the time, but it didn't seem to play a prominent role. Like, yes, Jagmeet Singh faces a lot of racism for being Sikh, but you know, trying to cater to evangelical Christians to get their votes, that hasn't really been a thing in this country. You know, playing to specific religious groups hasn't really been that big of a thing in this country. But it's becoming more of a thing. And we'll actually get into a little bit of Justin Trudeau and what he's done recently that just kind of irks me.
And evangelical Christians are not the political power here that they are in the United States. Here, they make up between 5 and 15% of the electorate, but they are all in on Poilievre. An Angus Reid Institute poll from April found that 75% of those who identify as evangelical are ready to vote Conservative versus just 5% who would vote for Justin Trudeau's Liberals. Donna.
And so here is, again, Poilievre saying he's a normal guy. The Liberal and the NDP are lunatics. So he's just throwing around ableist slurs. And is anybody going to call him out on that? People now want to wake up from this nightmare. That is what I offer them, says Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. So I guess he says, we can't go on like this. The situation is dire and people understand we cannot go on like this, says federal leader, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre, taking aim at the Prime Minister and his political pals, pointing to what is happening in this country. I'm the normal guy. Trudeau and the NDP are the wackos. They really want to make this word a thing. He's saying it all the freaking time. He wants wackos to be great again. I don't know. It's annoying how much he uses it, only because of how lame it is to use the word wackos over and over and over again whenever he's describing, you know, instead of just being bold and calling people the slurs and the offensive terms he wants, he just substitutes them all with wackos. They are the extremists. I'm the normal centrist mainstream leader. Normal. He's the normal one. Centrist mainstream leader that was cozying up with an extremist right-wing group and going to their trailer and stopping in to say hi. That is a centrist normal behavior there. So I'm the normal centrist mainstream leader, the only one running. The other guys are absolute raving wackos. They are ideological lunatics. Yeah. That's, again, very appropriate language for someone that's in the position to potentially become the next Prime Minister of Canada. To say first that they're happy a suspect is dead, and then also be calling their political rivals lunatics. That's some outstanding behavior there that we want to see in the leaders of our country. So it is, and then they're the ones that will cry victims when any sort of violence is inflicted. It is this type of rhetoric that emboldens the right-wing base. You know, you don't want somebody who's a wacko, who's a lunatic in power. No. You want somebody who is normal. He's normal. So normal. Just disgusting. You know, people with disabilities live with enough issues already, but, you know, calling people who don't suffer from mental health issues, who are completely able-minded people, calling them lunatics, not cool. Not cool. So, and then he gets on with more name calling, more American style rhetoric. So we have this video here. So the media wants to make it sound like this is a constitutional obligation that we allow. Well, he says it in here.
Eric Andrew G, Globe and Mail. Your party hasn't actually said what your policy towards safe injection sites will be. So you want to close this one, but will you close others? What will you do around safe injection sites across the country?
I will be closing them. We will close safe injection sites next to schools, playgrounds, anywhere else that they endanger the public and take lives. We will defund. By the way, they're not safe injection sites. I'm sorry. I used your dishonest language.
Does the language he's using sound familiar? Calling out the media, telling them that they're dishonest? Safe injection sites, safe ingestion sites are called safe because they are.
See, you just repeat the language that is fed to you by the government. Are you a CP? Are you a CP?
CP?
Who are you with?
Globe and Mail.
You're with the Globe and Mail. You guys repeat the same language you get from the radical liberal NDP activists and bureaucracies.
Yeah, he wants people to repeat the language that he's using all the time with the wackos and the lunatics and the radical left wing. I wish Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh were radical left-wingers. I really, really wish that. It'd be nice. But no. Liberals are center-right right now, and NDP are pretty centrist.
You call them safe. How can they be safe? You think it's safe when a bullet comes flying out of one of these sites to kill a mother in Toronto? You think that's safe? You think it's safe to have people using crack and heroin and cocaine next to a playground like this? You think that's safe? It's not safe.
Supervised injection sites.
They're drug dens. They're drug dens. And they've made everything worse. Everywhere they've been done, they've made everything worse. And I know what you'll do now. You'll now go and call the same bureaucrats who caused the chaos, and you'll call them experts. The people who caused the 400% increase in drug overdose deaths in Vancouver. You're going to...
A lot of the drug issues has to do with despair. You know, people who can't afford to stay in a home, can't afford to get the food they need, lack of health care, lack of living any sort of life. For a lot of people, you know, if you are totally able-bodied and able-minded when you go unhoused, you lose those really fast. Nobody stays able-bodied and able-minded dealing with that level of stress. And to call them drug dens, these safe injection sites that save lives, they save lives. But to demonize them like this, to stigmatize the people who need to use them, it's disgusting. If he gets into power, this is what we can be expecting in this country.
I call them experts. They are expert at destroying communities and ending lives, but at perpetuating their own industries.
So far he's already accused, you know, Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh of being like the radical left. Now he's accusing the media of using false framing. Now he's accusing experts of not being real experts. Like, is all of this sounding familiar? Certain types of rhetoric that have been coming up from, you know, the United States, maybe?
Because that's what they are. They are industries that want to expand, and the only way they can continue to exist is by keeping the misery going. So they're not safe. They are unsafe injection sites. They are drug dens, and we oppose them. The Supreme Court has been very clear that these radical bureaucrats don't have the right to open these drug dens anywhere they want. The court made it clear that there are reasonable restrictions that can be placed on them, and that includes playgrounds. So I've told you my policy. I'm against the drug dens next to children's playgrounds, schools, other places where people who are vulnerable in the community live.
He wants to get rid of all of them, regardless of where they are. And the thing is that safe injection sites need to be in spaces that are accessible to the people who need to use them, which usually means around other people. You can't just plop a safe injection site out of the city and expect people to be able to go and use it.
Defund them. There will not be a single taxpayer dollar. I'm against the drug dens next to children's playgrounds, schools, other places where people who are vulnerable in the community live. We will defund them. There will not be a single taxpayer dollar from the Poilievre government going to drug dens. Every single penny will go to treatment and recovery services to bring our loved ones home drug-free. Thank you.
A lot of those treatment and recovery things that he's talking about aren't actually covered under our universal health care. You know, a lot of that not covered. So he just wants to defund all of these safe injection sites, in essence, shutting them all down regardless of where they are.
Yes.
Nice try. Nice try. The Supreme Court didn't say that. See, I know what you're trying to do. The Supreme Court didn't. No, I'm giving you my answer. The Supreme Court did not say that there can be. Okay. The Supreme Court didn't say that you can have a drug den wherever you want. It said that there are reasonable restrictions that can be placed to stop them from opening up in locations that endanger the community or where there is community opposition. That's what the Supreme Court actually said. Now, I know that wacko politicians and the Liberals and the NDP and their supporters in the media want to make it sound like there's a constitutional obligation that we allow these drug dens anywhere they want to go up. That is not true.
And nobody's actually saying that. There are restrictions that they can't just go up wherever they want.
That is the opposite of true. We have the power under Section 56.1 of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to reject these drug dens and shut them down where they endanger the public, and that's what I will do.
Referring to them as drug dens is just so disgusting. And as the serves point out, safe injection sites are proven to slow the spread of HIV and other diseases, prevent deaths from overdose, provide resources and services for people to quit or migrate to less harmful substances. All his policies will result in more death, and they will. Because where are these people supposed to go when you shut down these safe injection sites? They go to places that aren't safe. They use things that aren't safe because you push them out. You get rid of their ability, their small ways that they can help themselves. You're taking that away. Yeah. Safe injection sites have been proven, as the serve says, as Lance says, they have been proven to help. And you can talk to the people who've worked at these sites, the amount of people they've saved from overdoses who would have died anywhere else. And every time, someone is saved, that means that they stand a chance of getting better because, you can't get better if you're dead. But they don't care. The conservatives don't care. And the language he's using, the way that he's framing it himself, but then accusing the left of framing it, it's all the same tactics that you see happening down in the United States. They're happening here. which is why, you know, a lot of Canadians pay attention to what's happening down there, because a lot of their rhetoric and their politics, it trickles up here. We have trickle up politic rhetoric. And here we have the CPC are constantly rage farming with their political theatrics while people die. These are vital services for people. They have reversed over 50,000 overdoses since 2017. More people would be dead without them. A bar is more of a drug den than this health care service. And that's from Zoe Dodd. And this is on the Conservative Party Twitter feed. Justin Trudeau refuses to call his safe injection sites for what they are, drug dens. You know, what's a bar? It's a safe ingestion site, for the most part. That's what a bar is it not? They just want these people dead. That's all it is. They don't care. They don't care. Yes, Vanessa, trickle-up fascism is what we're dealing with. And then here's this cute little tweet from Pierre Poilievre. Anna and I, that's his wife, climbed Mount Prairie near Calgary to find beautiful maple leaf at the summit. Bring home Canada. So this is the sentence that I want to focus on. Bring home the Canada where hard work climbs any mountain. Hard work. This is from July 10th near Calgary. I don't know if it was a record heat day. Some people are saying that, but from what I looked online, it was like a summer's day. They got all the way to the top of this trail looking like that. I've gone hiking. I enjoy hiking. I would not want my picture taken at the end of my hike. But the thing is he's all about the hard work, you know. These drug dens need to close, and the people that use them need to just pull themselves up by the bootstraps and do some hard work. He uses this rhetoric a fair bit. So this is from the Liberal Party. Listen to what Pierre Poilievre had to say in 2008 when Stephen Harper issued an apology for residential schools.
In 2008, the federal government, under then Prime Minister Harper, issued an apology. Now, along with this apology comes another $4 billion in compensation for those who partook in the residential schools over those years. Now, some of us are starting to ask, are we really getting value for all of this money? And
are we as a country getting value from, you know, giving money to cultures we've genocided? Oh, is it that? You know, where's the return in investment when we do reparations? You know, where is that when we give money to residential school survivors that no amount of money will ever take away the horror and trauma that they've lived through? Won't make up for the lives that were lost in these schools. But you know, where's our payback for doing something good? God, he is a disgusting person.
is more money really going to solve the problem? My view is that we need to engender the values of hard work.
You see, Indigenous peoples, they don't need more money, according to him. They need to learn the values of hard work.
And independence and self-reliance. That's the solution in the long run. More money will not solve it.
nothing will make up for what this country did. Nothing. But, giving them money so that they can, giving Indigenous peoples money to help them rebuild the way that they want. It's a start. But nothing will ever make up for the horrors this country has done. The horrors that a lot of people don't know this country has done. And this is what he said back then. So this article is from June 12th. Oh, wow. No, that's last month. Okay, I'm thinking that's really close to the same date in 2008. But here we have, so my view is that we need to engender the values of hard work and independence and self-reliance. That the solution in the long run, more money will not solve it, Polyev said. The MP also suggested that Aboriginal chiefs have too much power. They have too much power, too much. That gets to the heart of the problem on these reserves, where there's too much power concentrated in the hands of the leadership. And it makes you wonder where all of this money is going. That is horrible. That is racist, horrible. Yet he stands a good chance of becoming the next prime minister of this country. Accusing Indigenous peoples of just, using the money for their own self-interest, that there's too much power on these reserves. And yet he's the one wanting to concentrate all the power of Canada into his hands if possible. Just disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But so for the first time, and this is from APTN News, if you want to find out what's happening with Indigenous peoples in this area, in this country, this is a great news source. They cover all the issues from their perspective, and it's wonderful. So for the first time since becoming Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre attended this year's Assembly of First Nations annual General Assembly. But he was met with mixed reception and some turned backs by chief and veterans at the assembly. And this is the video here. Let's do this.
Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre was told to educate.
Let's do normal speed, shall we?
Himself by the chiefs this morning for not mentioning his action plan for MMIWG and not recognizing residential school survivors during his morning keynote address to the chiefs. Poilievre was also questioned why he did not mention a plan to address climate change and was told not to commercialize the lands and resources for infrastructure and jobs. Several leaders and veterans also chose to stand and show Poilievre their backs during his speech. If he is to become the next prime minister, Poilievre talked about conservative values being the same as Indigenous values. He promised to cut the bureaucratic red tape to streamline much-needed infrastructure projects in First Nations. He wants to make sure the revenue made from the resources will go directly towards First Nations first and help build more housing and bring down the cost of food in the north, among many other promises.
This is my first meeting with you in person, but I hope it will be the first of many. I want the next generation of Canada and the next government that I hope to have the privilege to lead to build a genuine partnership with First Nations, a nation-to-nation relationship based on the recognition of rights and mutual respect.
His speech ended with some
He doesn't respect much of anyone.
chiefs shouting at Poilievre that if he is to become prime minister, he needs to answer more questions. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh was up next and used much of his time to discredit everything
What? That was weird. Yeah, after Pierre gave his little speech, he left without answering any questions. from the people in the audience.
Polyev said and advised the chiefs not to trust him. He then noted a list of accomplishments the NDP has helped with for Indigenous people. He also offered to stay longer for more questions from the chiefs, which was met with cheers and applause. Here is what one of the AFN participants had to say who gave Polyev his back, alongside a First Nation veteran, along with comments from Jagmeet Singh on Polyev.
And I saw the veteran standing with his back to Pierre Polyev. That's when I started. I could feel my Two-Spirit ancestors were like, you got to do something as well, because Pierre Polyev has publicly attacked our Two-Spirit community and members of our Two-Spirit community, and he hides behind parental rights. So I talked to members of my council, I talked to the Women's Council who were sitting behind me, and my aunties were like, go stand beside him.
Clearly he's not someone that's going to stand on the side of Indigenous people. And I feel like it was obvious in the room, the chiefs and the leadership knew that as well. They knew that the Conservatives, specifically Pierre Polyev, did not actually come with a real message that connected with what they're going through. It's clear who he is. He's shown who he is to Indigenous people multiple times.
More resolutions will be discussed this afternoon on fisheries, education, and treaty, along with reaction from the Harris family on the Skibitsky decision. Christian Ashkate, APTN National News, Montreal.
And about this Skibitsky news, let me just check. We have this in. So I've covered this story a few times of a serial killer in Winnipeg who targeted Indigenous women and whose bodies are in a dump that has yet to be searched. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew has promised to search this. Money has now been allocated to search these landfills for the bodies of these women. And there was the court case and stuff. He's guilty. So justice was served. Killer of 4 women in Winnipeg guilty of first-degree murder. Because last time when I was covering this, he was going to try for an insanity plea.
Here inside, Chief Justice Glenn Joyelle told the packed courtroom that Jeremy Skibitsky's defense team did not prove that he was mentally ill during the time of the killings. Instead, he sided with the Crown, saying they proved beyond a reasonable doubt that he was intentional and racially motivated. Family members, including the sister of Mercedes Myron, celebrated outside the court with traditional songs.
I'm crowded with emotions. I'm extremely happy. A big weight has been lifted off my shoulders, and justice was served today.
Rebecca Contois' family stood together supporting her older brother as he spoke to the media.
A little anxiety because I just, hearing all that again, reliving it each time we're here. But ultimately, I believe that he made the right decision.
In his oral statement, Joyelle said, while there was some differences in how Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Buffalo Woman were killed, they all followed a pattern. All 4 were vulnerable Indigenous women. All 4 were strangled. All 4 were put in his bathtub. In Joyelle's words, he filled bathtub prior to the death of all 4 women. He said this interrogation video was crucial in helping determine his findings. Joyelle also talked about the testimony from 2 psychiatrists with very different opinions. He said he did not believe the defense's psychiatrist who said Skibitsky was living with schizophrenia. Instead, he believed the Crown's witness who said Skibitsky fabricated it all, including hearing voices from God that compelled him to kill the women. A huge round dance also took place at the iconic Portage and Main intersection. Supporters gathered to celebrate with the families. In his verdict, Joyelle thanked the families and supporters for standing by all 4 women over the past 2 years and for also attending the trial every day. Outside the courthouse, the Crown did the same.
They had every reason not to trust this system, and yet they consistently showed us their grace and courage. And to the family of Mashkote, Bejiki, Ekwe, Iban, you are not forgotten, and neither is your daughter.
Moving forward, the focus now turns to searching the Prairie Green landfill, where it is believed the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are.
Yeah. So now the next step is bring my girl home. Bring her home. That's all I need. Even just a piece of her would be good.
The maximum sentence Kibitsky can receive is an automatic life sentence with no parole for 25 years. While spirits are high today, some can't help but to think,
it will still never be enough because of what he still did to those to our women.
Judge Doyle is expected to give his full 150-page statement next week.
Now, the sentencing date isn't going to happen until sometime this fall. That's because earlier the Crown had asked for a later date so that family members and community members alike could have some time to do their impact statements. TR Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And another tweet here from the Surfs just pointing out, not surprised to find that the Nazi serial killer was a fan of Lauren Southern and residential school denialism. So please quickly cut off access to Jeremy Skivixy's from his Facebook pages after he was arrested, but not before. I was able to confirm that he was spreading residential school denialism around the time of his serial killings of Indigenous women in Winnipeg. And he has the screenshots of it. Just I'm glad there's some justice that the families of the survived victims will have. I'm glad that they didn't have to relive this in court over and over because he pleaded guilty right off the bat. So it was just a matter of proving if he was criminally responsible at the time. So there is that at least, but those landfills need to be searched. Those bodies need to go back to the families so that they can have proper closure. Oh, just wanted to point out where some of this rhetoric is going. The Conservative Party up here soon will look a lot more like what you see the Republican Party being like, where they push out any sort of diversity within their own parties because they're pandering to the right wing more and more and more. And part of this is Pierre Poilievre's doing. Everything you see happening in the States has the potential to happen here. It's usually a lot more difficult because we have a lot more checks and balances put in place, but it's not impossible for a lot of that rhetoric to be implemented up here. It would just look slightly different. So Conservative MP attacked online after praising police for arrest in alleged homophobic crime. Conservative MP Michelle is praising the Peterborough Police Service for arresting a man accused of hurling homophobic slurs and burning a pride flag. A move that drew the ire of social media users who condemned her as a fake conservative. A 48-year-old man was arrested last week on 2 charges of criminal harassment after he was accused of stealing a pride flag, burning it, according to police, screaming anti-gay epithets. The arrest demonstrates that hate has no place in our community and our country and will not be tolerated, Michelle said in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter. Thank you, Peterborough Police, for arresting this man, she said, adding that one of the individual's actions don't speak for the constituents in the mid-sized city about 120 kilometers. At the time of his arrest, the accused was on probation and under court order instructing him not to utter words, wear clothing, or hold signs that are racist, anti-Semitic, or homophobic. I'm pretty sure you shouldn't be doing that anyway. I don't think you need a court order to not be doing the hate speech thing here in Canada. But that's pretty extreme when they have to put under court order instructing him not to utter words, wear clothing, or hold signs that are racist, anti-Semitic, or homophobic. So the news asked the police for the individual's name. Okay, let's get down to here. So people responding. The Liberal agenda with Bill C-16 has gone too far. They want to walk around naked in front of kids, and the cops let them. They want to go to schools in drag costumes and read story time, thankfully. I never had kids. Who's this? That's just some random social media user from the looks of it, who says their PDF files, an apparent reference to the members of the LGBTQ community. So Michelle fired back at this particular user saying that gay people are not PDF files. PDF files are PDF files. Don't lump the radical woke with them. That's some pretty, we hate the radical woke left, but, you probably shouldn't call them PDF files unfounded. That's a little something anyway, a little pushback at least. You can call them all these other slurs and things, but you probably shouldn't call them PDF files, because actually that can land you in a lot of trouble in this country if you do that. The movement supports them, this Twitter user said in response. The legislation was a lightning rod during debate in Parliament. Some observers claim it would allow trans women to infringe on female-born spaces or somehow punish people who don't use a trans person's preferred pronoun, something that wasn't explicitly mentioned in the legislation. Other social media responses to Michelle called her pathetic, a fake conservative. Some accused her of being a groomer who holds liberal red Tory values and suggested police ignore other offenses to go after this woke vote getting crime. Another person asked her had ever considered going to the bat for the straight white people who voted you in. Yeah, it's just any support that conservatives are going to show queer communities, they will get attacked by their own side. It's now the leopards eating their own face type thing. But also, this was kind of disappointing. About 54% of Canadians surveyed said there should be laws banning discrimination against LGBTQ people in employment, education, housing, and social services, a 9% drop from the figure reported in 2021. So this rhetoric, it filters through. It emboldens people. But what happens when all of the moderate conservatives get pushed out of that party, then suddenly the people who were just slightly right-wing are viewed as the moderates, and it won't be long before they get targeted for not being, extreme enough. And they just keep on going that way and going that way until you have this extremist right-wing government that wants to strip away people's rights, defund everything, privatize everything. It's very unnerving times right now. Let's check the Sandbox before we get on to what's next. Hunger Games 1989, correct me if I'm wrong. Two-Spirit is part of the queer community. Want to make sure I understand things correctly. Two-Spirit is something specific to Indigenous peoples. Depending on who you ask, it's a different definition, but in Canada, it is quite often to say 2S LGBTQ+, and include it with queer folks. But it doesn't mean anyone who's Indigenous and queer would be considered 2S. It's its own specific identifier within the queer community. Some comments about the story of the serial killer. Looney Tunes 9000, what is their obsession with PDF files? Yeah, the right sure does love to talk about it, despite how they love to talk about the ones that don't exist on the left, but they never really talk about the ones that do exist on the right that we know about. Vicky says, I have no idea what some think goes on in lady toilets. There was a piece today in UK paper that seems to think we use it as a social hub. I'm all for like gender neutral bathrooms. Like if there's stalls and stuff like that, does it matter? Do people have, segregated washrooms in their own house? Only men can use this one, only women can use that one. Or washrooms that, you just walk into and it's one washroom with the toilet and the sink and stuff and you close the door. Does it matter who walks into that room and closes the door? Does it really matter which gender they are? Let's see, wanted to get to this. So that is what I wanted to say about what was happening down in the States and how that's affecting Pierre Poilievre and what's that doing up here and all that sort of stuff. But there is another group of stories I wanted to get to today. I also wanted to cover a whole bunch of stuff about Doug Ford, but then the American politics kind of took over his slot. So in my next live stream, I'm going to give some updates about Doug Ford and some of his shenanigans. Let's see. I wanted to cover this because it's a story I have been following quite closely about some of the encampments at the universities, the pro-Palestinian ones, protesting genocide. I'm pro-protesting genocide. But quite a few of them have been shut down recently in various ways. And so last time I was doing a live stream, the University of Toronto, they had an injunction and they had to leave. So the students left before the deadline so that it wouldn't give the police an excuse to inflict violence. Because again, political violence. But there was still something that happened afterwards that is just like, really? Really? An Indigenous artist made this papier-mâché olive tree. I watched it come together. At 5:59 p.m., this degenerate pushed it over, exactly what rabid settlers do to the olive groves of Palestinians in the occupied West Bank. Occupy U of T was a microcosm in many ways for Bizan. So this art installment was the only thing kind of left on the encampment when the students left. Like when the students left, they took their garbage, they took their tents, they didn't leave anything behind. There was just, some dead grass where the tents were, but they left the grounds in really good conditions. And then they also left this papier-mâché art installment. That's did a good job there, knocking over a piece of art that was, protesting a genocide. Good on you, dude.
What is this made of? Papier-mâché? Boy. Good. Creative.
And then here it's when the campers left U of T lawn, they left behind no garbage, no sign that they'd been there for 2 months except for dead grass and a newspaper mache-like sculpture. It was toppled by a Toronto man. Then the bomb squad came to check to see if it was safe. Bomb squad, huh? Because, yeah, they would pick up all their garbage and stuff of that sort, but they would just leave a bomb behind. But McGill is also, let's go to this one. They've also been evicted, but it was a lot more violent.
Protesters were escorted off McGill's property, away from the encampment set up in April. There was a strong police presence, but it was a private security company hired by the university that surrounded the camp as workers dismantled it. Most protesters left, fearing arrest, but some refused.
We will definitely keep protesting. As long as the people in Palestine are resisting, we have no reason to stop.
Demonstrators who left the encampment moved their action to the street.
This strengthens our resolve, and the steps that are going to be taken after today are, an increased steadfastness.
McGill says it took this step because it says the camp was illegal. Writing in a statement, people linked to the camp have harassed our community members, engaged in anti-Semitic intimidation, damaged and destroyed McGill property, forcefully occupied a building, clashed with police, and committed acts of assault. Protesters deny these allegations and say their actions were peaceful, aimed at forcing the university to divest from companies with ties to Israel.
At least they mentioned that the protesters denied that, because from everything I've seen, the protesters have been so, what's the word? So kind of controlled in what their actions to make sure that they don't do anything. Because again, it's that whole left versus right thing. So you had a lot of Zionists and right-wingers attacking these encampments, but then you had the protesters doing nothing, because if they knew if they did anything that even resembled anything aggressive or violent, that would just give, all the permission that these people want to take down their encampment, to tell everyone that they're horrible people and this and that and the other thing. The protesters were overwhelmingly peaceful, protesting a genocide.
The administration has shown that they were never committed to getting a peaceful end to this encampment. Shame.
But one Jewish group welcomed the move.
I'm glad to see that McGill has taken steps to dismantle the encampment and prioritize the safety of students.
Montreal police say while this was not their operation but McGill's, they did arrest one protester for allegedly assaulting a security agent. By early afternoon, the last handful of demonstrators had left the property.
That was officially the last stand. There's nobody in the encampment anymore.
And in the heavy rain, protesters dispersed as the encampment was reduced to a pile of debris. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
Pro-Palestinian protesters gathered at Phillips Square on Thursday night to denounce the dismantling of the McGill encampment. The demonstration started around 8:15 p.m. and moved to the streets shortly after. According to Montreal police, some protesters were masked and being hostile. They say fireworks were thrown in the direction of officers. The window of a bank on Peel and de Maisonneuve was also smashed. Police used tear gas to disperse the crowd. Authorities say one 22-year-old man was arrested for obstructing police work and assaulting a peace officer.
So about that political violence. I'd be very, I don't rule it out, but generally speaking, it's not the protesters that start the conflict.
Was later released. They add there were 2 cases of assault against officers. In an Instagram post,
Assault or self-defense? There's a difference. To normal people, there would be a difference anyway. But to the police, if you try to defend yourself from being assaulted by the police, then suddenly it's wrong.
protesters described the police intervention as excessively violent.
Yeah. So about that political violence there, but also the encampment in my home city of University of Waterloo has also been shut down. So in my last live stream, I was mentioning that they were being sued by the university for $1.5 million. That suit has been dropped. And I don't know the details of it or anything of that sort. The way they frame it, it's a win because of the pressure put on the university to drop the suit. But then they also just happened to close up at that time. It's... So we will not stop our statement on the decision to decamp on July 7th. On July 7th, Occupy UW decided to voluntarily decamp after nearly 2 months of occupying the Gaza House Screen. This decision is a strategic one made in the service of our movement and demands to end complicity in Israel's brutal genocide of the Palestinian people. Our encampment has achieved an unprecedented number of wins, including getting the university to back away from a $1.5 million lawsuit and court injunction that would have enabled it to call the police on its own students. However, we have become increasingly alarmed at that the encampment now provides a central surveilled space where the university will continue to enact its aggression targeting students, activisms, and activists on campus. UW's lawsuit against Palestinian and allied students has fostered an atmosphere of anti-Palestinian racism, whereby extreme escalations against the encampment have become acceptable. Through its actions, the university has effectively manufactured consent to target and harm students organizing to the end of the genocide. Their continued surveillance and police monitoring of our camp provided them with opportunity to target and publicize the names of organizers in the encampment and to sue for $1.5 million. This has resulted in the organizers being doxxed and harassed. The lawsuit also emboldened agitators to surround our liberated zone. They've rented planes to fly disgusting signage over our encampment and have attempted to physically attack us on the ground. In effect, the university has purposely placed a target on our backs in this space, increasingly put us in harm's way. Over the 2 months of our encampment, we have achieved many material wins for our movement. We have forced the university to disclose all their investments, including all direct and indirect investments. We are now able to materially link the university with several arms manufacturers companies on the BDS list, including but not limited to Albitz, Safran, and Bay Systems. And in doing so, we have laid bare the reality that the University of Waterloo is an institution committed to investment in apartheid and genocide, and in no way a neutral educational institution. It also, as it so proudly likes to present itself. We have also been able to successfully fight back and force the university to drop its shameful lawsuit against us. We set the precedent that attempts to intimidate students against speaking out will not be tolerated. And so that is their statement. So that encampment is now also closed. So that's 3 encampments in the last little while. But where's that political violence coming from all the time? You know, where's the comments and statements on that? Instead, what happens is our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, who says, you know, Zionism should not be a dirty word. He promoted somebody in his cabinet to a position, somebody I have talked about plenty of times on my channel. He is the MP of Zionism, liberal, Anthony Horsefarter. Prime Minister announces new special advisor on Jewish community relations and anti-Semitism. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, today announced that Anthony Housefather, or Horsefather, depending on, your inflection, Member of Parliament for Mount Royal, has been named Special Advisor on Jewish Community Relations and Anti-Semitism. So they put a Zionist, a very avowed Zionist, in charge of this. What could go wrong? In recent months, we've seen a disturbing rise in anti-Semitism across the world, including right here in Canada. This must not continue, whether it's at a synagogue or a Jewish business or school, whether it's wearing the Star of David or a kippah. Jewish Canadians deserve to feel safe, supported, and welcomed. I'm just wondering, so where's the special advisor on Muslim communities and Islamophobic, anti-Islamic phobic stuff? Is there committee on that? Or is it just this? Do we have that special advisor committee for all the Islamophobia that's going on right now? Probably not. I don't know for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me if there's not. So they deserve to live openly and proudly Jewish lives without intimidation or fear. And I do agree with that. Anti-Semitism is bad. But, saying people shouldn't be slaughtered in Gaza is not anti-Semitic. Too often in recent months, Canadians have been threatened, harassed, and excluded because of their faith, their identity, or because they support the Jewish people's right to self-determination. Is that what that is? Israel bombing Gaza like that. Is that self-determination? Because again, I'm against the Israel government. The government and the actions of the government. That is unacceptable and must stop. Mr. Horsefarter's role will be to advise the Prime Minister and ministers on the development and coordination of the Government of Canada's work to combat anti-Semitism and ensure Jewish Canadians are able to live with vibrancy, security, and dignity. This will include working with Jewish Canadians from across the country. Mr. Horsefarter will help advance actions throughout the federal government to combat anti-Semitism, enhance the protection of Jewish Canadians' communities, and address the unprecedented discrimination against them, both historical and current. In this role, Mr. Horsefarter will work closely with Jewish communities and relevant stakeholders across the country and Canada's Special Envoy preserving Holocaust remembrance and combating anti-Semitism, Deborah Loynes. Mr. Horsefarter has been an elected official for 30 years. He served as blah, 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 blah. Anti-Semitism is not a problem for the Jewish community to solve alone. We will continue to take action across the government to make Canada safer, more inclusive, and better for everyone. Would that also be the Palestinians that live here? The ones that have families that are being massacred over in Gaza? Is it going to be inclusive and safe for them here? Is it safe to wear a keffiyeh in Queen's Park, for example? No? How about we just get rid of all the hatred in general? Work on all of it. But instead, Justin Trudeau and Anthony Horsefarter are prioritizing one group over another when it comes to this. Anti-Semitism is bad. No doubt about it. But where is all of this care and concern for the harassment and racist hate being directed towards Palestinians and Muslims? Where is the special committees, the speaking out against it? Because Islamophobia is on the rise as well. It's drastically increasing right now. There's been attacks on, some man went into a school recently to threaten them. you just look at all the students that were at these university encampments, and some of them got assaulted and harassed by Zionists. Where are their committees? So MP Horsefarter appointed to new role, fighting anti-Semitism. Liberal MP, and so this would just kind of go over all of that again. But his statement, my family has been here since the 19th century, and we have indeed helped build this country. I am not going anywhere. Sorry, anti-Semites. You may not like what I have to say, but I will keep saying it. I will keep being a proud Jew and a Zionist. See, it's Zionism equals terrorism. It's the Zionism there. Oh, I haven't read this article. This caught my eye here. At least one member of the Liberal caucus has questioned his ability to unite Canadians in the new role. A name I cannot pronounce, Liberal MP for Brampton Centre, told CBC News in a text message in June that he believed Ben Carr or Julie, so other people or anyone who has a balanced approach would do a better job. I think his appointment won't be helpful in addressing anti-Semitism or Islamophobia because he lacks in judgment and has contributed more in dividing Canadians in the last 8 months, the MP said. House Father has repeatedly described himself as a Zionist and did so during the debate on the NDP motion in the House of Commons. And it's not like he would ever overstep his bounds or anything in this new role. Or maybe. This overstepping, and this is from Erica, this overstepping of his parliamentary power, he has no right to review university documents for approval. I reviewed the agreements signed by U of Windsor and am deeply disturbed. I am working with Deborah to engage in whatever that is, on issue. I've reached out, who is Ontario Minister responsible, looking forward to her leadership on this file. Yeah, so, but he wants say over something that the university is doing. Yeah, he's not the best one to be heading up that committee. Somebody that biased, an out and about proud Zionist who accuses anyone being pro-Palestinian, anyone protesting the genocide, he accuses them of being anti-Semitic. Let's check the Sandbox. Is it on this? No, it's on this side, isn't it? It's on this side. I don't know. It's on one of these sides. Vicky Clee says my school has mixed-use toilets since it was built 14 years ago, floor-to-ceiling stalls and open wash basin area, no issues. Hunger Games 1989, do you mean the non-political genocide going on and the non-political protests going on at Left of the Box? Yeah, all that not political violence that we see with our eyeballs daily. BKK, imagine being proud and strutting around after destroying art. Yeah, his whole attitude about it, just so entitled. The entitlement that he had to do that is just... It's a piece of art saying, please don't kill people. But oh no, that has to come down. We have to, topple down this thing that represents an olive tree because it's not like it doesn't happen all the time in the West Bank. Vanessa, assaulting a security officer, you mean defending himself? They are not police officers. They are not legally allowed to use violence on protesters. Yeah, like all these assaults on officers and stuff. It's like, how many people were just trying to defend themselves? And then suddenly, oh, no, that's assault. That's assault. But it's not political violence. Vanessa, if they drop the lawsuit, isn't that a confession that it's malice lawfare? There should be a counter lawsuit. That'd be nice. I don't know why it happened, but yeah. I probably shouldn't speculate on it either. Vicky, Zionist is such a dirty word. Meta is apparently flagging comments using it. Yes, bad lefty horse farter. You can thank Grand Theft Autobot for coming up with that one. My dogs are goth. That gross truck by Rebel Media was one of the most Islamophobic things I've seen. Yeah. Islamophobia is definitely on the rise. So it'd be nice to see a committee on that. Justin, can you get on top of that? Justin? Okay. I'm just going to quickly check because it's one of those things where I'm always checking Twitter now because you never know when something is just going completely blow up. Literally and figuratively. Because I keep on hoping that the news will break that Biden is stepping down. But I'm not seeing anything about that, which is unfortunate. Yeah, Biden needs to step down. It's... Ugh. I don't know what more I can say about it. So I still have a lot of stuff to go over with Doug Ford, but I'm going to save that for a different stream. I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover today. I'm hoping to start getting back into doing some more regular streams now that this book project is kind of getting close to being done. So I'm still working on editing the last of it. So I'm using this plugin to edit it for grammar and words and stuff. But then I'm still going to do like a smooth out edit. And this all has to be done before the 31st. But I can't wait to actually be able to talk about the book, like what's in it and about it and stuff, which eventually will happen with this one. So my first book, which hasn't been published yet, which is another thing that I need to get on top of, I need to reach out to that local writers group to ask them about getting some help with that. That book I can't tell you guys about even after it's published, just for my own safety. Should the day come that that book becomes like a wildly successful bestseller, or my YouTube channel becomes wildly successful, then I might feel safe enough to come out about that book. But until then, it kind of has to stay under wraps. But this book that I'm working on right now, Once this little competition thing is over, I don't see why there's no reason why I can't tell you what book it is. It'd be a lot of fun. And yeah, hopefully my anxiety about doing streams stops becoming an issue. Because I tried to do a stream on Friday, but as I was prepping for it, I was shutting down. I couldn't. I wish there was like medication I could take for it, but it's a hassle trying to get any sort of medication from my doctor about it. I've tried edibles. They don't really seem to do much for me, so pretty much just have to live through it. Vicky Clee, oh my God, just realized that I'm not subscribed here. I was sure I was from before. It is possible YouTube unsubscribes people from time to time. I don't know. I don't know how that works. But yeah, let me just toss all these up. There's also a couple of art projects that I want to work on. There's a picture in my head that I actually want to try to do. That's not a portrait. I will attempt it and see how it turns out. It'll be a drawing and see how well I can make it compared to what I see in my head anyway. But yeah, if people can, please become a patron. It really helps to support this channel. I don't have like a member tier on YouTube or anything of that sort because, you know, if YouTube ever decides to demonetize my channel because I'm a left-wing radical wacko lunatic, I don't want my income to go away. Not that I'm getting much. So yeah, if you can, please support my content by becoming a patron. You can also look for my art and buy my art. That would also help support me and my content. And of course, all of these social media things, but still primarily the hostile fart sauna here is Twitter. Even I am starting to feel it on there. It's, when they took away the likes, like being able to see people's public likes, that was annoying because I used that. It was a tool to kind of get a feel for who people were or to find out about more news articles. It's like, oh, what is this person liking? Chances are I'll like it too. And yeah. But thank you so much to everyone who's already become a patron, who has helped me out by purchasing something on my wish list, which is linked in the description box below. Anything on that list helps. Like some of it is to buy equipment for the studio, my artwork. Some of it will just make me smile. Some of it is for my kitty cats. I have one over there who's asleep right now and he's so damn cute. Frodo is doing well still, knock on anything resembling wood. He's eating. And as long as he's eating, that's good. And he plays with his brother. He primarily plays with Lanier. He doesn't really play with Abernathy. And I still get my bedtime snuggles with him, which is just the best. So that cat is my life right now. And thank you to the mods for keeping the sandbox clean of turds. Thank you for everyone coming out. I hope to have more Canadian shenanigans for you soon. Still trying to figure out my flow with this because I'm not sure all the time if I'm communicating things that I want to communicate in the way that I want to communicate them. I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Yeah, but I want to get working on my book again. It is like, I have never been this hyper focused on anything before. To just be so completely absorbed in it because a lot of people be like, oh yeah, it's hard to get around to the editing and writer's block and stuff. And yet that's all I want to do. All I want to do is be in this book because it is just such an escape for me to take me away from everything in this life. Because it's not just political stuff, it's personal stuff that I just don't want to deal with. And to just be in this book, it's like a holodiction for people who are fans of Star Trek. They said that there's this thing called holodiction where you become addicted to living out fantasies in the holodeck and stuff. And in a way, it feels very similar that I'm just so focused on this book so I can escape this reality. But I can't wait till I can actually talk to you guys about this book. And yeah, I think that's all. I need to eat something because I'm hungry. And yeah, I'm stalling because I'm still working on how to end these things. So thank you everyone again for coming out. I'm not sure when my next live stream will be, so stay tuned. Nope, not that one. This one. Salut, à la prochaine. Thank you for watching and stay tuned. I'm Sandy, wishing your tomorrow is better than your today.